All right, and you're live, right?
We are live.
This is the first time that you ever going live for anything.
This is the first time ever, so thank you for making me go out on this limb with you.
Well, somebody has to do it, so yeah, that's how it's done. And I definitely want to welcome your fans who are watching you for the first time ever live.
Well, thank you for that. I do advise that starting is the hardest, so I feel like that little shove is probably just what we needed.
Right. So since you're a lawyer, so why don't you something that can tell us that you're not responsible for what you say?
Oh, there's a disclaimer about this. I represent myself and my own opinions, and if I say something stupid here, it can't be held against me.
Oh my goodness, that's too funny. That's hilarious. All right, so welcome to my channel. Obviously, I did go live on my personal page as well, so you're gonna get some more friends, more friend requests, so you can deal with that.
Perfect. We can all use more friends.
Yeah. So Leyla, you good?
Yes.
You having fun? Perfect. We love kids, man, because kids just, they just dive into technology and everything is cool. All right, here we go. Going live in 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon. Welcome live to Channel ATv Podcast Studio. This is Davis live at Channel ATV. And I have the privilege and honor to host two beautiful ladies, the mother and daughter in the building. So it's good to have you guys in the studio. It's good to see you. Ellenore and Leyla, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right. So this is what you've been looking for. Leyla was excited to be here. You not so much, Ellenore.
I thought it was going to be all about her.
Well,
but we can do this together.
You always need moms, so moms have to be there somehow, somewhere. We got to make it happen like that.
That is true.
Yeah, absolutely. So welcome. I'm excited to have a conversation with you guys.
We are looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So it's a Wednesday afternoon.
It is indeed.
And it was a short day in class, so she had to, we had to work around a schedule, Isn't that just how beautiful it is for parents, that, even after all these years, you still have to work around your kids just to make time for everything?
They're the boss.
Incredible. Okay, so we're going to pay some bills, and when we come back, we're going to definitely take some time and talk to you. For those of you that are watching us from all over the world, right here in Seattle, Washington, and those of you that are watching from Africa, those of you watching from England and Europe in general, thank you so much for connecting with us. And we are live at Channel ATV. When we come back, we're going to dive into this conversation. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So I am excited to talk to a mother and daughter, which is always exciting for me when I work with kids. And Leyla, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. And how excited are you? Let's start from there.
I'm very excited to be here.
Okay, good. And Mom, welcome.
Thank you.
Elena, we connected, and shout out to One Vibe Africa, by the way, for making sure awesome. That we continue having relationships and growing this village, as he calls it. So it's good to have you guys here. But I want to make sure that we introduce you to the people, because folks that are watching, and they know, like everybody that comes into the studio, they have a story. And I'm excited to share your story. So please introduce yourself, and then we're going to go to Leyla after that.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. My name is Ellenore and Angelidis. I am a lawyer by training, but I call myself an accidental social entrepreneur.
Right.
And it really started when we brought a little girl home from Ethiopia in 2008.
Right.
And we really wanted to connect her to her culture and her country. And it started us on a journey, and it brought us here, and we'll talk about sort of some of the twists and turns along the way and what we learned and what we've been trying to do, and we need a global village to help us meet those goals.
Absolutely. Very well said. Welcome. And Leyla, do you want to introduce yourself to the fans?
Yes, I would like to. Hello, my name is Leyla Angelidis. I'm 11 years old, and I go to Sunny Hills Elementary School as a 5th grader.
Right.
Some of my interests are reading, basketball, writing, and I love dancing.
You love dancing?
Yes.
So you're athletic, and then you can move, you get some moves. So what's the connection between basketball and dancing?
Both requires you to use your head.
Okay.
You have to be able to know how to use your body in the correct way at the correct moment.
Nice.
That's what I love about them.
So the agility and the flexibility, all that working together.
Yes.
Perfect. That's a great answer. And you're 11 years old.
Yes.
Great. I wish I was that sharp when I was 11 years old, you know. I probably could have given you a whole different answer. Yeah, so Ellenore, you decided to go to the continent of Africa and came back with a prize such as this. You know, why?
It's a hard answer to give because I felt there were kids in the world who needed a home. And my husband and I had 2 sons, and we really felt like there was a little girl somewhere in the world that was supposed to be part of our family.
Yeah.
And Ethiopia happened sort of as we figured out what was culturally connected to. My husband is Greek, I'm Dutch, to things that were comfortable to us, and then just what doors opened along the way. And Ethiopia sort of opened, and all of a sudden we have an even more multicultural family than we had before.
Absolutely. It's very interesting when you look at the picture of your family, how diverse it is.
Well, when Leyla was little, she referred to us as chocolate rainbow.
Yeah.
I'm clearly anchoring vanilla.
Ooh,
and then we got a couple caramel and, milk chocolate and maybe a little dark chocolate
Balanced.
along the way. Yeah, so we had a whole range of chocolates that we could represent.
And shout out to your husband, by the way. He played basketball overseas.
He did. He told me when we first dated how impressed I should have been by his record.
But he didn't. You should have said that I'm a lawyer, you know.
I was not a lawyer at the time.
Okay.
We both were figuring out our lives, but I thought he exaggerated.
So let me guess. So you went to law school just to top him somehow.
Somehow. He'd already won a national championship. I had to sort of bring my A game. But if you go back to Greece and people of his vintage, they know him. He was many people's favorite player. So I learned after visiting his home country that he wasn't completely exaggerating about his stature there, but I was unimpressed at that time.
I see. Okay, fair enough. We're going to leave it like that. We don't want to cause any problems.
It's all been good since. He's also a calculus teacher, so he's doing his part to prepare young people for STEM careers and just understanding that math is a really important part of problem solving. So we feel like we anchor different ends of the contribution to young people. Math is not where I put my focus, but it's an important piece of what kids need to learn.
Absolutely. And I love it because your family is so balanced because everybody's contributing in some form or fashion, right? And so let's talk about, I'm more interested, you have a whole bunch of books here. And for those of you that are watching, I mean, you know, you don't just go through this, you know, by accident. You call yourself an accident, but I think this is, there's some kind of, some level of anointment here, you know. What made you think, first of all, to start writing?
Well, it's interesting. I always liked writing as a kid, and somehow as I created professional career for myself, my writing was only professional but not creative. So it was literally when my daughter came home and I wanted to understand some things that didn't make sense to me, I started writing again. I wrote blogs and articles, and then I met other writers through that process, including an award-winning kids author who had grown up in the very southern part of Ethiopia called Maji, and she was creating stories to honor that period of her life and to give stories to kids in that part of the world who don't grow up with the kinds of storybooks we take for granted here. So that was kind of the beginning of the journey.
Right.
But then that wasn't big enough. My husband will joke that I don't like anything small.
Right.
So I asked her the question, how many books do we need if we want to impact literacy of a country?
I see.
So that was our goal really, is how many books does that take? And apparently, 1 to 200 unique titles. So we just set out to do that and hoped that our village would step up and help us make it happen, because we really didn't know when we started how we were going to do that. We hadn't done it before. I hadn't done it before.
Well, that's the beauty of dreaming, because you just dream about something and you dive into it, and the next thing you know, it takes off. So for you, Leyla, when you mom started running around and doing all these things, and you're still a baby at that time, you're still a kid. You're still young, 11 is still young, but I'm sure you feel old, right? Do you feel old? Yeah. Or you just feel okay? So you can't wait to have your own account you do have an account on TikTok, but I'm sure you want to have it verified at some point, and you can do whatever you need to do, right?
Yeah, that would be fun.
That would be fun, huh? It's coming. So you just got to be a little bit more patient, So at what point, Leyla, did you think, writing was cool and you wanted to be part of the project?
Well, I like to write like little short stories at home.
Right.
They would be about like 50 pages, but when me and my mom started playing around with writing a book with some of our stories that had actually happened, that were very fun when they happened.
Right.
We thought that it would be a very fun idea to put them into actual books and share them. Right.
So, is it fun to write books, or you just do it because you can do it?
No, it's very fun to write books. Yes.
I love that. And so what's the most fun about it? The actual writing or the creativity that goes with it? Like getting the illustration with the words, or what do you enjoy the most?
Probably the creativeness that goes into it. That has to happen to...
For everything to work together.
Yes.
I see. And Ellenore, for you, why is it important for you to make sure that your family is involved in all these projects, regardless of what they're doing? Like your husband does something totally different, but you also understood that math is connected to, every child's success that needs to happen in the process, right? So how are you making all these things balance out? Because when I look at you doing so many things, I mean, look at these books right here. How many of these? This is just not even everything, No,
we have 85 titles now.
85 titles.
In 3 languages on Amazon and a number of other languages in Africa. So, yes, it's a huge project. I think for me, what really motivated me was understanding that the opportunities for children depended a lot on where in the world they were born.
Yeah.
Even in the U.S., it depends on where in the U.S. you were born.
Correct.
And that, being able to read and getting an education and having opportunities are human rights. To realize your full potential is a human right, but yet we're not given equal opportunity to do that. For me, it was, I can't fix that everywhere, but I can do my part to try and equalize those opportunities. And I'm a child of immigrants, so my parents sort of raised you to say, hard work and an education and you can do anything.
Absolutely.
They forgot to tell me, if you don't have opportunities, hard work and education aren't always available.
It's not always available,
so
opportunity has to happen.
You have to have opportunity, and education, again, we take it for granted. We take it for granted that kids have enough books to learn how to read or even learn how to read. So I think it's educating people that there are opportunities that you have that you're taking for granted, but there are things we can do from that position of privilege to actually create opportunities for others. And I think the beauty is it create opportunities for ourselves as well, because this whole journey, not knowing where it will end and not knowing where it's going, has been just a beautiful journey of meeting incredible people, learning new things. And we're a mid-sized publisher on Kindle Direct Publishing now. Who would have thought? That wasn't the goal, but it was one of the things we achieved along the way.
That's the beauty of it. So when you think about the ecosystem, right? How are you playing a role, using your talents to be a part of the word, or the phrase ecosystem? Because I know that, you're marrying all these things, which are kind of like going in a circle, if you will. So how are you using your talents to make sure that you're part of the journey of the ecosystem?
Well, I think the fact that you use the ecosystem is really, really powerful, because we are living in a giant ecosystem. We are all connected in different ways, and I'm a person who sees connections. Not everybody sees connections, so that was something I learned along the way. So for me, it's really looking for where are there gaps or blank spaces or opportunities that aren't being done that we could have an outsized impact. So the books, for example, literacy has been a challenge in Leyla's birth country for decades. And everybody's tackling it with schools and libraries. But without the books, part of that effort will never be successful. So it was, why don't we be the crazy ones and say, we'll try and solve the book part of it and then connect that with the other things happening. And I do think things are just much more powerful connected.
Absolutely.
And that your circle analogy is a great one. I think 6 degrees of separation, you can connect yourself to almost every other human being on the planet. And that to me is like both comforting and empowering. And I find then that allows me to do things that may seem out of character, out of the norm for somebody like me, because I think we all are connected. So we all have a part to play in whatever is happening in the world, whether it's where you're from or where someone else is from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great answer. And Leyla, for yourself, where do you see yourself when you're 20 years old or 21 years old?
Well, one thing that I really have wanted to always become was a teacher. So I've always wanted to obviously become a teacher.
I see.
And I just loved helping people have a better understanding of things and explaining things to people.
Right.
So that's what I see myself doing.
That's cool. That's really cool. Being a teacher, I think, is one of the coolest things, and that most of the people don't think about, but it plays such an important role in the community, because education is really the key to anything. Right. Absolutely. But as an immigrant myself, our parents used to tell us, you either go to school, become a lawyer, a doctor, or, and it ends there. Right. So in your mind, Ellenore, when you're raising the kids, you're exposing them to all these possibilities, right? To become whoever or, whatever they choose to be. Why is it important in this time and era where we have social media, the kids are exposed to a lot of different things at an early age? Why is it important for you to expose them to different options so that they have a chance to for a better future, if you will?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, because I think as parents we tend to think of our kids as an extension of ourselves. And I think one of the interesting intellectual exercises you have to do if you're a parent of a child who doesn't share your biology is come to grips with, this child is a different kind of extension of me. Right. And maybe my job is to guide them on their journey, which is actually true for whether your children share your biology or not. Right. And I think that metaphor or that model allows you to see that your job is actually to help your children realize their potential. And in order to do that, I think the more that you expose them to things that make them uncomfortable, make them see the world differently. We lived overseas. We lived in Paris and Luxembourg. We've traveled a lot of places. My kids, her older brothers, are very critical of what's happening in the U.S., and they have seen different ways of being in other parts of the world. And I think it's really important to expose your children to as wide a degree of difference from people and cultures, and then help them find what is the gift they're supposed to give. Because I think your whole life is a journey of self-discovery and what you're supposed to give back. And I think it's less about, my parents do, like make money, have a respected place in society. I think those are two very worthy goals, but I think often there's a gift that you should be giving and helping kids figure that out earlier. So I feel like my 3 children are much more in tune than I was. It took me a couple decades to realize maybe my gift is a little different than my career. Yeah.
So if you didn't do law, what else, could you have done?
It's interesting. I was a very creative person. I was like the, best senior artist at my high school. I loved painting, and I sort of gave up creative because that wasn't serious enough, and I couldn't see how to commercialize that. And what I realized is you don't have to commercialize something for it to have value. And I think for me, that ability to now explore at a different phase of my life, the creative side, through creating the books, through creating an organization, through creating opportunities, I think for me it's this evolution of everything I've done before allowed me to do what I'm doing now. And even being a lawyer is, lawyers are actually, put there to help people know what their rights are and to be able to operate within a system that has certain rules and certain guidelines. So I feel the legal part of my career and my training has enabled me to feel very empowered and to know how to empower others, even though the way I do it doesn't necessarily tie back to my law books anymore. Yeah.
That's a great answer as well. So Leyla, you are obviously a strong girl, right? So what is the description of a powerful young lady to you? Or a powerful girl?
What I think a powerful girl is a girl who is not afraid to speak her mind and is not afraid to go out there and get what she wants done.
I see. That's a perfect answer. I knew she could say that. I knew she could say that.
She demonstrates it too, just so you know.
She demonstrates it. That's excellent. That's excellent. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we want to talk more about the books and everything else that you're doing in the community. So stay tuned. We'll be right back within 15 seconds. Here we go. And definitely welcome back to Channel ATv. We're live in the studio with beautiful hosts here, and we have special guests. Obviously, we have people in the background doing all types of stuff, but we are focusing more on our guests that we have today. And in front of me, I have a whole bunch of books. So let me just start from this one right here. Where do dreams grow?
Well, that was one we thought was really important because our organization is called Open Hearts, Big Dreams, and someone said it was an act of hubris to even name something like that.
Right.
But to me, if your heart is open and you dream big, anything is possible. And to me, that applies to both the people within the organization and the people who would benefit from the work that we do. So this was a book. I met a young, talented illustrator on Facebook.
Right.
Her name is Beth Mola.
You met on Facebook?
We met her on Facebook.
Okay.
She reached out, and I'd seen some of her work, and I asked her, would she want to do a book with us?
Right.
And she is based in Addis Ababa, so you'll see some of the illustrations feature the university where she attended. And we had a story around dreams that allowed kids to imagine themselves doing a whole lot of really different things and sort of realizing that anything is possible as a child. You just have to dream it. So that book is a collaboration with an author here, and Beth, who we actually got to present her book to her in Addis when we visited earlier last year.
Right.
And it was such a gift to be able to show her what her hard work had done.
I see. So how do you figure out all these illustrations? Do you just kind of like when you write the book, you tell them I want the girl to look like this or a young boy to look like this? How do you figure out, what characters to use in the books?
Well, it's really interesting because every book has its own story.
Yeah.
I feel like every book is almost birthed rather than like created, because it can start from, we have a whole lot of illustrations and we need a story.
Yeah.
So we have like a group of elderly people in Vancouver, Washington, who go to an art class. They get pictures of scenes in Ethiopia and they paint.
Yeah.
And then we get the art, and then the art creates a story. So it's working backwards from the art.
I see.
For other books, somebody has a vision, and it could be an author illustrator that wants to do a particular book, like the book you have in front of you, Yaya, Come Here, was an author illustrator who had met a young boy in Guinea, 20 years ago, and she was so inspired by what his daily life looked like, and she felt like that was a story that was simple but worth telling people.
Absolutely.
And what I love about that story is one of her friends took a copy of that book back to Guinea.
Yeah.
And they found Yaya, who is now 24 years old.
Wow.
So it had been a little less than 2 decades. And they were able to give him the book of his childhood and complete the circle, as we talked about earlier. So each book has its own story like that. And some of them are a collaboration with a lot of different artists. Some of them are one artist. The book that Leyla and I did together, which was a story from a family trip back to Ethiopia,
right.
We actually asked an illustrator that we met that lived in her birth town if he wouldn't mind doing the illustrators for us.
And that worked out.
Well, and it did. It was one of those amazing things because he has done, if you see his art, you would be in awe. His art is hanging in the office of the president of Ethiopia.
Wow.
He is fantastically talented, and he said, sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent on the continent. There's a lot of talent.
Oh, it's incredible. And the fact that they're willing to give their talent to this project continues to amaze me every time it happens, and it happens with some regularity.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last time I seen Leyla, it was during Kijiji Night at Seattle Art Museum, and we were on the panel together. Obviously, I was hosting the panel. Leyla, you learned something about that, or you prepared for something during that time, which was Pan-Africanism, right? So what did you learn about Pan-Africanism? What does it mean to you, Pan-Africanism?
Well, definitely it's still a very new topic, but it is very interesting to me. It teaches me about the importance of working together and coming together. So,
right, as people, right?
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you still remember that.
Yes.
I'm so glad. I'm so excited about it. and Ellenore, for you, what does it mean, Pan-Africanism? How do you understand it from your perspective?
It was really interesting because, as Leyla mentioned, we researched because I felt like it was important that we actually understood the concept from a number of different perspectives, and there isn't actually one definition of Pan-Africanism
That's
if
right.
you go look.
Yeah.
So I think the definition that really resonated with us, and again, was consistent with our experience, is that all people of African origin, whether in the diaspora or living in the continent,
right.
both not only have a shared history, but a shared destiny.
Absolutely.
And for me, like, I actually resonated to that for a different reason. Because, again, if you think about Ethiopia being the birthplace of humanity,
correct.
We were all African once.
Absolutely.
Right? So the human race, and I joke that I am Ethiopian. I was Ethiopian at one time, and my ancestors went where there was no sun. So
it's actually true. So it's not even a joke. It's actually true.
Yes.
So if you haven't if you haven't read about that, you better go back and read about it so you can know that actually what you're saying is true, because we are all descendants from.
No, and that's why I think it's so beautiful, because
Yeah.
I think Pan-Africanism, people may say, well, I'm from Europe, that doesn't apply to me. And I joke, but it's based in truth, that we're all Ethiopian.
Absolutely.
And we're all African, and then we obviously spread around the world, and depending on whether or not we needed more or less pigment, we look the same or different at this point in time.
Right.
But no, I feel like that concept of we are one people, and we have a shared history, and we have a shared destiny. My family was very involved in World War II with the Dutch resistance and some of the horrible things that were happening on the continent of Europe. So this concept that we have the shared history and the shared destiny is very much in line with sort of my family values, and the thing that I think we need to do to basically flourish and thrive as a human race. And it doesn't matter where in the world we are now. We have this shared history and destiny that starts with the continent of Africa.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you're exposing your kids to different things, you make sure that they're involved in the community, they're supporting things that are being brought into existence, and pushing the narrative of things that are positive according to you, right? So we have the books live. You can go to the library, Seattle Library. You can pick up one of these books. We're going to talk about that. But before we go back to the books, I want to talk to you about something different. What does census mean to you? Let's start with you, Ellenore.
Census to me means to be counted and to count. So the census happens every 10 years, and it's the way that the government understands how many people are in different parts of the country and what are their needs and what kinds of services and policies they need.
Right.
I think for immigrant communities, it can be often very scary depending on what your government was like, where you came from, and the concept of being counted may feel like something that is not going to benefit you. But to me, the census is all about making sure you get the representation in the House of Representatives. So how many people are here determines how many representatives we get. And also, it's what kind of policies and resources that you get. So if the government doesn't know that there's a certain demographic within the community, that demographic will likely be underserved. So I think we get the question on a frequent basis, how many Ethiopians are in Seattle? It's not an easy question to answer, and the census, where you both are counted and you count, allows you to be able to answer that question and make sure all the groups that are included within the Seattle or Washington area get the resources they need so they can flourish.
Excellent, excellent. So that's very well said. Very, very well explained. Leyla, do you have anything to say after that about census?
My mom made a bunch of good points.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, if we're not counted and we're not represented, how will we get what we need to, like my mom said, flourish?
Right, so like services, like lunch money in school. Lunch money is required when you're counted, right? So the government can shortchange you if you're not counted, because then the government doesn't know, how many people go to your school or how many people live in your city. So that's very good, very, very good. So when we come back, we want to make sure that we continue this conversation, and we're going to talk about where people can pick up the books and where people can connect with you if they want to connect. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. right, welcome back to Channel ATV. We are live here at the studio at Channel ATV Podcast, and I have special guests Leyla and Ellenore, mother and daughter, here in the building. So thank you so much for being here, and those of you that are watching from overseas, thank you for tuning in. I know it's kind of awkward hours, but you're still there, you're still watching, so that's a good thing. So let's talk about this book right here, The Lost Son. What inspired you to write this book?
So that book was actually sponsored by a local group here. I met the one of the leaders at one of our events, and we connected later, and she was very interested, because it's a book focused on the Orthodox Christian religion, about how they could get involved and how what we were doing might connect with what they were doing. And they wanted to write a Bible story, and they picked this story, which I loved, because to me, forgiveness... We all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
We all do things that we wish we could take back.
We could take back, yeah.
And most religious stories, whether you are a member of that religious group or not, have universal messages. So that message is about the lost son, and I think for those of the Christian faith, they know it. But for those of any faith, that ability to mess up and to then be forgiven is huge. What I love is we had an artist that is based outside of Addis in Bishiftu, who we just said, here's the story, create the art. He did a modern take on the lost son, because the son crashes a car and goes to a bar, and you don't really feel like you're in biblical Israel at that time. You feel like you might be in your own neighborhood. And I was very curious to see if the group that sponsored the book would like that take on it. And it was very interesting and gratifying to me that they loved it. And I felt like it made the story resonate more with youth today than it's not an ancient story. It is an ancient story, but it's a story that repeats through every generation of, there's a time...
And it continues on.
It continues on that, people make mistakes and people need to be forgiven. And I think it's something we need to do on a regular basis. So that story resonates with me for a lot of different reasons.
And that's a big one, forgiveness, right?
Yes, forgiveness.
Absolutely. Leyla, you've been back to Ethiopia? Have you been to Ethiopia since you came back? How many times have you been?
3 times.
3 times. So what do you feel when you get back to Ethiopia? You live in the United States. You've been here for almost 11 years, right? So what do you feel when you go back home and you walk down the streets and you see some of the poor kids, unfortunately? What do you feel at that time when you're walking down the street and you see some of the kids who are not as fortunate as you are right now? What goes in your mind?
Well, I feel happy, not because they're poor, but because I know that we have the opportunity to be able to help them in their education. And that just makes me so happy that we're able to help people who are less
there's
fortunate.
An opportunity.
Yes.
That's good. And you're doing so even through the books that you're writing now to be able to tell stories, and you can raise the money. And when you raise the money, you actually donate to those same communities, correct?
Yes.
That's what your mom does, and she helps you navigate through the process. That's incredible. That's incredible. So what do you love the most about Ethiopia when you go to visit now?
It's just so beautiful.
Yeah?
It's breathtaking. Like, the sunrises and sunsets are just amazing.
Yeah.
And, like, the people themselves are amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, so.
Absolutely. Because it's more like family-oriented, right? There you can see grandma, you can see extended family members, But what do you love the most about the United States?
The United States people are just very nice.
Yeah?
Yes.
They always smile at you when you walk in? Yeah? Even strangers too, right?
Yes.
I see. Okay, so that's a great thing. So when you grow up, what is that one thing that you want to be able to experience that you're not able to experience right now?
I want to be able to experience more, like, being honestly together.
Yeah.
Like, being with friends and family, and, like, being able to trust and love one another. And
be safe, right?
Yes.
I see. And Elena, coming back to you, what does it mean to be a woman of substance?
That's a really hard question. To me, it is doing things that matter and living with integrity. And I think we lack a lot of courageous leadership, so to be brave.
Yeah.
And I was the head of diversity for Amazon for a period, and what struck me is that around the world, women are not given the same opportunities as men, and it doesn't matter what country you pick.
Absolutely.
And when women progress, and again, starting with the little women, every country does better. So if we could get full participation by women around the world, the world would be better. And to me, we need women of substance, because it's not easy to lead in an area where you're expected to have a different role.
Correct.
So I think a woman of substance is to be brave, live with integrity, and to try and create opportunities for others, if you're privileged enough like me to have made it through a couple of the hurdles further than somebody else.
Yeah. That's a great answer, actually. So if there's a person out there looking at you and watching you right now, they look at you like, oh, she's privileged, or she has all these opportunities, and I don't have opportunities. In your own way, in your own experience in life, what are some of the things that you've struggled with that made you relate to someone who might be a minority or someone who might be less fortunate, and you said, it was more like a wake-up call for you?
Right.
What are some of the things that you've gone through?
Well, one of the books I plan to read is Failing Your Way to Success, because I feel like I've done a really good job at falling down on a very regular basis. It's just not the Facebook thing you show everyone or the Instagram post
Right.
But I grew up poor. My dad was unemployed for a period, and we didn't have money. And if the car broke down, there was no money for groceries. So I did grow up in an environment where there was not plenty. There was plenty of love, and there was educational opportunity, but not a lot of resources. I went to college, and I was supposed to become a doctor.
Right.
As you mentioned, I'm a lawyer, so clearly that didn't work out. And I failed, and I ran away to Europe and really tried to figure out, I was a smart person, and I failed. Now what? And you realize that failure is not fatal, and often failing is a learning experience. So I found throughout my life, I have tried things, and they haven't worked. It's just, what do you do after that? And I think all of us, when we hit a brick wall, or we don't have an opportunity, or we can't make something happen, there's that chance to lift yourself up, dust yourself off, and try again.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned briefly my family. My grandparents I've been very humbled by what they experienced in World War II. My one grandfather was in a Japanese concentration camp by choice.
Yeah, by choice.
By choice.
Interesting.
Because he had the opportunity to get his wife and kids and other electrical engineers. They worked at a radio station, probably not unlike where we're sitting now.
Right.
And they knew the Japanese were coming.
Yeah.
And they had the choice to stay.
Right.
And they negotiated for everyone else to leave, and they would stay and be captured. And I feel like if you come from those sorts of ancestors, you don't get to say you have it hard, right?
Yeah.
And my other side of the family did a lot in occupied the Netherlands, resisting the Nazis, and my other grandfather distributed the Dutch resistance newspaper.
Right.
So again, I think those examples of people who showed incredible courage in times of incredible ugliness and fear and hatred, then to me, in the times we live in, the problems that we face are of a nature that we should be able to work through them. And if you have that opportunity and you can help someone else, then take it, right? And I found my biggest joys are trying to help other people realize what their dreams are. So part of what I'm doing here is trying to open those doors. Yeah. And I hope one day she can take it and she can run with it. I think I joked with you, I'm keeping the seat warm. But
right.
The goal here was, how do you empower the next generation to do better than what our generation did?
Absolutely. And the goal is, I was talking to my son actually, the goal is to make sure that your children live better than you did.
Yes.
And I think if we can do that, then we create, an ecosystem to where, you pass on something to your family members, and then they take it, and like I said, they run with it.
There's a legacy, and I do think doing better than your parents, not necessarily financially.
No,
I feel like it is doing better in the richness of your life, what Leyla talked about, peace and relationships and love and connection, because I feel like one of the things that always struck me when we go back to Ethiopia and we travel to other parts of Africa, by American standards, people are poor, right? And your material wealth is supposed to decide whether you're happy or not by some standards. So these people should not be happy, and they are. They're happy. They're rich. They're rich in love. They're rich in culture. They're rich in relationships.
Family,
So,
and the faith, and their faith as well.
So life can be very rich without resources, and to me, I think part of teaching your kids how do you create a rich life for yourself that actually leaves the world a little better place than you found it, should be the goal for all of us. And I feel like that is a journey that, to me, is an everyday effort to make that a reality.
Absolutely, that's a very well said answer. Obviously, Leyla, when you look around you, for me, different things inspire me, right? Sometimes the water can inspire me. Sometimes people can inspire me. So what are some of the things that inspire you as a young lady?
Definitely my mom.
Yeah.
And
I didn't pay her to say that.
my dad, most definitely.
Yeah.
Also, just the people who help us create the books. They inspire me. Jane Kurtz is also someone who amazes me and inspires me at the same time.
At the same time. And what's some of the, what's your favorite book that you've read so far?
Definitely mine.
Definitely yours.
I love mine.
I was hoping you would say that, And what's the title of your book?
It's called Surprise on Lake Tana.
I see. Very interesting. And if somebody's trying to purchase that book right now, where can they find it?
Amazon.
On Amazon. So they just type in the title, which is?
Surprise on Lake Tana.
Okay. Excellent. And Mom, for you, you've traveled the world. You've been to Europe, you've been to Africa, you've been in a lot of places. We talked about this behind scenes, and you would, obviously experienced a lot of cool things, right? So when you look at the continent of Africa, what is the hope for the continent of Africa when you look at the next 15, 20 years?
I feel like the hope for Africa is the hope for the entire world. Like the resources, whether they be the young people or the natural resources, they reside in Africa. And I feel like if we can just tap that potential by providing the opportunities, by coming together, we not only do literacy, we do some things around STEM. And I think technology, art, and literacy are three huge ways to open the world. So to me, what I'd like to see from the continent of Africa is that the young people and everyone living there gets the same opportunities that we've seen in places like the U.S. and Europe. And I think you will be amazed at what comes from there. I think the entrepreneurial spirit is strong, and the talent is amazing. And it's just a matter of providing them the tools to realize their full potential. And I think the world will just be amazed at what comes next.
Absolutely. I hope that most people can get the opportunity to travel as you have and experience Africa for what it is. Because it's one thing to watch, what you watch on TV, and then to travel there, you realize how beautiful it is and how warm the people are. And just the opportunity, like you said, for investment and tourism and all these things that Africa has to offer. Definitely. So, I want to thank you for being here, but I want to make sure that we give you the opportunity, beginning with Leyla. Why don't you thank anyone that you want to thank, because I know that your growing up is very interesting and you have a lot of people that have helped you to grow up, right? So who would you like to give a shout out to?
Like I said last time, definitely my mom, my dad, and my entire family.
Okay.
My best friend, she's also helped me grow and helped me.
What's her name?
Nilla.
Yes. And you guys go to school together?
Yes, we've been friends since kindergarten.
Excellent. Wow.
And Nilla and Leyla are collaborating on a story. Nilla's mom is from Nigeria.
Nilla's a very good artist.
And I like the fact that your names rhyme. Did you ever think about that?
Yes.
And they're double trouble.
They're double trouble. Okay. Sounds like a plan. And in closing for you, any last words?
One, thanks so much for having us here and giving us this opportunity. It was so amazing to meet you at One Vibe and to meet Simon. And I think what I'd like to tell people is when you get out of your comfort zone and you try and take what you feel like you should do or the dreams that you have and figure out a way to try and make them a reality, it's really amazing what doors open and what incredible things happen and what incredible people sort of drop in your path or there to help you. And I think this is a wonderful example, and we're just thrilled to get this opportunity and to collaborate going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're welcome here anytime, because I know you're always writing books, you're always dropping new projects and stuff like that. So if people are trying to connect with you, we know that you focus on more writing. We talked about this, and doing other things. You're like, oh, forget social media. You went live for the first time today, and but you also realize that this is a powerful tool that needs to be taken advantage of in the right way. If people are trying to connect with you, how should they reach out to you?
Well, there's lots of different ways. We are on social media, although we haven't been brave enough to go live until today.
Yeah.
So you'll find us on Facebook and Instagram, and we also connect with the professional community on LinkedIn, because we feel like a lot of what we do is tapping into folks who have a professional capacity to help. We're also on Twitter, which allows us to meet other individuals there, and and we have a few videos up on YouTube, but clearly we need to do some more work there.
Yeah. And how can people watch that video? Because I've seen it. It's an interesting video that I think most of the folks need to take advantage and watch it.
Well, they can actually visit our website, which is www.openheartsbigdreams.org, O-R-G, and we have a video there. And the video was, as you mentioned, of our last trip to Ethiopia. Leyla and I went together for the first time. Most of the time before, it had been our family.
Right.
And we visited our projects and the people we collaborate with. And it was such an amazing experience, because we met heads of universities to, little kids who are just fascinated by the books, to award-winning, scientists out in the countryside. So it really allowed us to see the potential and the breadth and the diversity of the people who are trying to make things better for themselves and others, which was incredibly inspiring.
Excellent, excellent. Those of you guys that are watching, I want to thank you for tuning in. It's a late afternoon into the evenings here in the United States, especially in Seattle. And if you are looking at these beautiful images of books that are written with such amazing stories, please connect with Leyla and Ellenore, out there if you can. I want to thank you, and I think on behalf of the African community, I want to thank you for just taking your time and being involved and going into the continent and connect with folks and families and different educators and politicians and all these people that you're making kind of connections with. So I want to thank you, and this is home for you. You can come back here anytime, whenever you can. So God bless you, and we'll be seeing you and hearing from you soon. We'll be right back. This is Davies Chirwa one more time on channel ATV. I want to thank you for watching. Stay tuned. God bless and take care.